Well, it's 6 o'clock. It looks like we're all logged on. Okay, great. I think we can go ahead and get started then. First off, Happy New Year, or maybe I should say happy and new, and I hope improved year. Unless anybody wants to redo last year, we'll go. Great.
Happy New Year to you.
Excuse me?
Happy New Year to everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will now call this meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council to order. This is a regular meeting for January the 5th, 2021. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. So Judy, if you could display the American flag. If you'll join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Okay, would the city clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Councilors Judith Chandler,
Present.
Don Shada,
Here.
Julie Wolf,
Here.
Susan Wolbrook,
Here.
Steve Brimner,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune,
Present.
and Mayor John Graham.
Present. Thank you. Okay, the next item is to approve the agenda. You all have had a copy of the agenda, so I would entertain a motion to approve. Councilor Wolf?
Hi, I'd like to pull F3 off and then otherwise move to approve F1 and 2.
Okay, that's the consent calendar. I'm asking for the overall. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's
I've already lost track.
well, that's okay. We're rusty. We've been off for 2 weeks now, so okay. But otherwise, if the agenda is otherwise okay, we take a motion to approve, and then we'll visit the consent calendar separately.
I'll move to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Motion is unanimous. All right. Next item is public comment on non-agenda items. So do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to a non-agenda item?
Yes, Mayor, we just had a hand go up, and that was from Becky Elder.
Okay, great. Well, that's okay. If you would go ahead and bring Becky over.
Okay, and just a reminder, we do need to have, along with the name and the residence address.
Right.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes,
Yes.
and just
Yeah.
Becky, just to refresh your memory, we'll need
Yes,
your
yes.
name and your
My name
address.
is Rebecca Elder. I live at 313 Plainview Place in Manitou Springs. Wow, it's great to see you all. This is the first meeting I've managed to come to. It's been a long year. Anyway, Happy New Year to all you guys. You all look great. I'm glad to see Jeff Parker too, because I never see him unless I came to a council meeting. And so I'm talking to you about my usual lean is that the city and climate change and having a good plan. This is more than planting trees. This is like getting our own New Deal for Manitou. There's so many things that are going off the track. And I know this is a horrible subject for most of you guys, but the scientists, the climate scientists gave us 10 years to really rectify what we are doing to our environment within a decade, 10 years. Well, now a year's gone. It's now 9 years. And what are we doing? And so I know you cannot answer that, but I know you guys do retreats. I know that you have, special committees. I really think this is a big enough issue. I mean, this is existential challenge to our species. And I walked the creek path today, and there's just so many things that are not looking healthy. They've been pruned improperly. They've been hacked. It's just been horrid. And I would really like to see the city take this seriously. I was on council, as you all know, for 5 years, and I just don't see this being taken as serious as it is. That's all I want to say. I'd like to get you guys moving on something that everyone can participate in. And it's more than planting trees. Yeah, we planted some trees. We lost a lot of the trees that we initially planted. We're cutting down more trees on Becker's Lane, which to me, if you really had this issue in your understanding, you wouldn't do that. She says she's planting 1-to-1 on trees. You're taking a tree that's 50, 60, 70 years old, however old, and replacing it with a little whip. 1-to-1. Even Shelley Cobaugh said she wanted to do 3-to-1 to try and make up for that carbon sequestration and all the services. And that's just the trees. We have food, we have composting, we have fossil fuel usage on all of our vehicles. We have so many other ways we could be managing this. And right now we are not managing anything. We're just rolling along. Thank you guys. I know it's a hard job. I really dodged a big giant bullet by getting off last January. Oh, and I hate to laugh, but I mean, it's just been an incredible year. And I really value all you guys standing up to this and forging through new waters. But you all look reasonably well. You all look sane, pretty sane, pretty sane. So thank you for your service and thanks for hearing me out.
May I
Thank you,
ask,
Becky. Thank you, Becky. Councilor Wolf, we typically don't respond to the non-agenda
I
items.
know, I'm having an atypical night. I wondered if I could ask Becky a question.
If there's no objection from the rest of council, I don't see an objection. Julie, go ahead and please ask Becky.
Becky, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, if the council should at some point determine that it would be helpful to have a committee, would you be willing or interested in heading it up or helping serve?
Well, I don't know how good I am at heading things up anymore. You know, we had the tree board for 3 years and could never get a full, group to even be taken seriously. But you'd be hard pressed to keep me from attending. I've been attending all these other little less than meetings. I shouldn't say less than, very important meetings that don't get any attention. So I absolutely would be doing that. And I'm also doing things my own and not waiting for the city to do things. But I think it behooves the city to be active on this. In 20 years, what are we going to be living in? I mean, the signs that I've been seeing is that, well, we'll be living in a more Arizona, mid-New Mexico environment. What's that going to do to all the trees we have that don't live in that environment? Are we looking at that, So yeah, Julie, you'd be hard pressed to keep me away.
Thank you. I have more questions, but I won't ask. So thank you.
Well, I'm not hiding. You can always email me.
Okay, Becky.
All right. Have a good evening, y'all.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Do we have any other public comment requests? Okay.
Mary, we just had a hand go up, so
I
it's
see. Okay, I'm hearing it. Okay. So,
Mary Ellen.
Okay, so, and something I didn't say
Ready?
before Becky spoke is we do try to keep the comments to 3 minutes, and we typically don't answer, council doesn't typically respond back. So, Mary Ellen?
All right, hi, everybody, good evening. Thanks, I know this is an agenda item, so I don't know if this is the right time to talk, but I thought I would anyway, if that's okay.
No, if this is an agenda item, this is not the right time to talk.
Okay, very good, I'll wait, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? All right.
I don't see any other
Okay,
hands.
let's go. I'm sorry, was there a remark? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and go along. Next item is the consent calendar. We have 3 items on it. And Julie, you had I think, a comment?
Thank you. I wanted to pull F3, please. And otherwise move to adopt or approve F1 and 2.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, all righty. So the motion is to approve the first 2 items, the consent calendar. The first being the approval of the December 15th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. The second is the resolution 0121, appointing council members as liaisons to the various boards, commissions, committees, agencies, and organizations, for which there was very little change. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Very good. Now we will take up item F3, resolution 0221, a resolution establishing the locations of the posting of notices for the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado. And Councilor Wolf, as you had a concern about it, why don't we give you the floor?
Thank you. I wondered if we could have a sentence that says there will be a separate tab identified on the home page specifically for this notice. And I know that may sound picky, but a lot of people, including myself, have a very difficult time navigating the city's website, even to this day. So I thought that would be appropriate because otherwise, similarly challenged people might not be able to find the notice readily. And so I wondered if we could just have that one sentence added.
Discussion, other council members? Well, I have, I don't want to speak for someone who has to do the technical implementation. It seems to me like that's a reasonable request. And we should at least run it past, I guess it would be Alex, who handles most of our webpage work. If that could be done fairly straightforwardly, I wouldn't necessarily, I think that would be okay. Judy, you have a comment?
Yes, I'm actually the one that puts that up on the
Oh,
website.
okay. Oh, I'm sorry. So Judy,
That's
can
okay.
you?
I mean, Alex is our webmaster, so to speak.
Yeah.
But what I try to do is I do try to put links in more than one place to take people to where that is located. And then also, we still do the physical posting as well. But I do try to have like a link that gets you from whether you're comfortable on the homepage with the calendar, or I try to, make sure I notice when I put things in there, I say, go to the city council page. It's also under agendas and minutes. So it's actually in multiple places on our website to navigate to it.
I don't think that's working very well, with all due respect. It's not easy. You don't know if you don't have something that says public notice. I think it would be nice to have something that says public notice. I don't want to have to navigate and find this, and then it takes me to this, and then 4 clicks later, if I did it right, I'm in the right place. Oh, Roy has his hands up.
Excuse me, Mr. Cheney, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I've worked with Alex on the website in the past, and one of the challenges we have is on the first page where we would want to have that link and some kind of banner that says public notices. I think that's what you're looking for. When we had COVID and everything being happening, and we were trying to put that on there, we have limits. So we would have to limit on that kind of link on the front page. If there was something we could eliminate, we could add a public notice button, but we are at our maximum. So we could look into that.
We do have a button on our homepage that says agendas and minutes. And that will take you right to that page where those agendas go up and the packets go up and get posted. So it is actually a link on our homepage that says agendas and minutes. It's a little box. Used to be a button, a little circle. Now it's a box. That's right in the center of the homepage.
Can you change that to agendas and minutes and public notices? Because if the answer is no, I think the resolution should indicate that it's mandatory for us to continue to put the piece of paper on the door of City Hall until such time as our webpage is ready to allow a separate link just for public notices.
Well, the agenda is the public notice. So an agenda is the notice of the meeting and where it's at. It contains all the information. It contains the items, agenda items. So that is the notice, is the agenda. I don't know if we can add some sort of wording to help people understand what an agenda contains and how that provides that information, but that is what the agenda is that public notice.
Okay,
Judy,
so
Denise had I'm sorry. I think Denise had her hand up first and then Nancy. Denise, did you
Go
want to
ahead,
respond?
Nancy. Go ahead, Nancy,
Nancy,
and then I'll
okay.
respond.
I was just going to suggest, Judy, I think what is that Councillor Wolf is asking is that in section 2 of the resolution, we take out the word where possible and say, in addition to the city website, the bulletin board, the Manitou, et cetera, so that it has to be posted in 2 locations, both on the website and on the front window at City Hall. Historically, that's what we've done.
And that's historically what we still continue to do. The whole idea, I know the state, they really, about a little over a year ago, they were urging all of the cities and towns to have the website be the primary posting location. It's not that we don't post other places, we do, but if something were to happen, say a pandemic, where we were not able to physically go down there and post that front board, it is still going up on the website. It's still accessing. And so that requirement, that mandate to put it there, we can put it in more places. But as far as the mandate goes, this is saying we're mandated to absolutely put it on our website, and that's where we post it as our mandated location. But we still do post actually in 2 other locations physically.
Wolf?
okay, I'm on the city website. I'm on the homepage.
Okay.
And I guess maybe I'm missing something. I see visitors, business, community. I want to, government, and news press releases. I do not see agendas / public notices. So then one has to guess, well, where do I go?
Okay, so I've just brought our homepage up.
Okay, well, I'm not on that homepage. Oh, that's the homepage I'm on. Oh,
This is our homepage, and right here, agendas and minutes. So this is what,
had it.
one little click of the roll of the thing, and right here, agendas and minutes. And-
Wait a minute. Wait, I don't know what you're doing because mine has the lit up picture of the gazebo with people standing outside and then those words that I told you. So go back to the homepage
I'm going.
and then tell me, where do you see the word agenda public notice?
Okay, so this is,
Go down.
Where do you see that?
so there's.
That's not the homepage. My homepage doesn't magically pull that thing up. Are you supposed to scroll down? Is that? Oh, okay. I guess it was a scrolling problem.
Those are our quick links. So there's more than one place to go. You can also go in other places. You can go under government to city council, but these are our quick links.
And so if there's no way for me to get the agenda of anything on that link other than city council, like how do I find that it doesn't have HPC or, these other meetings that are public? The parking board, how is that a whole separate thing you're supposed to do to find that?
If you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, you actually have a calendar. And so there are those meetings listed there. If they want to just get to boards and commissions, we have our tabs that say government, boards and commissions. And that's going to give you all those boards and commissions. It gives you the meeting links. And then if you click on their personal link, you can go into their webpage.
I see. Okay, so you have to know that if you want a board or commission, you go to government. as opposed to community.
Sure. Well, right.
I just don't think it's very, anyway, I don't think it's a big deal. I guess if you're worried about the, why don't we have it say then, and if there's a pandemic that prevents someone from posting it on the door, then it won't be posted on the door and it'll only be posted on the website. But I would like it to be mandatory that we continue to put it on the, and I'm sure we're not going to get sued and get in trouble if the whole city's on fire and nobody goes to put up the sign on the door. But I don't like switching to the website only. I don't think the website's that good.
And as I said, this is a state requirement that they wanted the cities and towns to go to having the required mandated location.
But
be our
Judy,
website.
it's not violating the state requirement to say that the web page shall be primary. And since we're a home rule city in Manitou, we're also opting to have it be mandatory to put the sign on the door. Well, let's ask Jeff. You think that's violating state law, Jeff, if we change it like that?
No, that's fine. It's up to city council.
Okay,
You
well,
can-
that's
you can-
what I figured. Okay, well, that would be my motion, my preference.
Could you restate that, Julie, more completely?
Yeah, actually, let me pull up the actual language of the ordinance so I can suggest where it goes. Sorry, I lost it.
Oh, here, I've got it pulled up. Let me go ahead and share it.
There we go. I got it. Okay, all this whereas, and then. Okay, so the city code, so the section 1 would say, we would add a second sentence to section 1 that said, oh, actually, section 2 will simply say, we're going to take out the words where possible. And we're just going to say the bulletin board at Manitou City Hall in the window, shall be used in addition.
So that's your motion. Okay.
Yes, please. I
Do
don't
we
know
have
if
a
I have a second, but that would be my preference.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Could I ask for a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Just add in addition to that, unless emergency conditions preclude posting there or something like that.
Sure. I would, I'll amend it to include that extra language.
I'll second that if it needs a second,
Yeah, okay, it does. Okay, so that was,
with the amendment.
okay, that was Counselor Chandler. Okay, so now the motion is to, in section 2, we take out where, as I understand it, we take out where possible and turn the may into a shall. And then we put an initial sentence in there to the effect that in the event of emergency, we're excused, something to that.
Or we
Okay.
could just make a comma after the word addition, like Nancy was suggesting, and just say something like, which requirement is excused in the event of an emergency? Something like that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Council, any further discussion? Okay, if we could go ahead and vote. Okay, I think we can all see each other now. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye. Okay, it looks like we're all good with that. So, okay, motion passes. All right, thank you. So now we'll have
Thank
the,
you.
sure. Okay, no, I think it's a good point. Okay, so we've taken care of the material on the consent calendar. Next item is G1. It's a proclamation recognizing Mark Moreland for his service to the community. So if it's okay, I'll just go ahead and read that. City of Manitou Springs Proclamation number 0121, recognizing Mark Moreland and his service to the community. Whereas the City of Manitou Springs wishes to recognize the extensive contributions made by Mark Moreland to the community, particularly in light of his service as a Manitou Springs City Council member and as mayor. And whereas Mark served for 10 years on City Council from 1997 to 2007, demonstrating the highest standards of vision and community service. And whereas Mark was held in high regard throughout the community, Mayor Morrison said that he was a very easy colleague to work with, and he had the ability to take another opinion about an issue and not be disagreeable with anyone. And whereas his efforts were key in redeveloping the downtown business district and on planning and historic preservation matters. With an eye to the long-term good of the city, he did much to champion sustainability. He also represented the city and county level programs. And whereas in his professional role as an educator, Mark was admired as a mentor by his students, noted for the inspiration he brought to their learning. And whereas Mark's character and personal values reflect the most highly valued qualities an elected representative might be expected to demonstrate. Former councilman and mayor Mark Snyder recalled, for instance, that Mark had an incredible compassion for those less fortunate. Mark also viewed handling the city's finances as a moral responsibility that drove and reflected the community's own values and goals. And whereas in 2007, Mark was diagnosed with Huntington's disease, which prevented him from seeking another term of office. He continued to attend community events until the disease prevented that. He died December 8, 2020. Whereas Mark Moreland was a sterling example of citizenship and of selflessness in the service of the greater of the community. Now, therefore, I, John Graham, Mayor of the City of Manitou Springs, on behalf of the 2021 Manitou Springs City Council, do hereby proclaim and recognize the service of Mark Moreland to the people of Manitou Springs. His example serves as a powerful demonstration of citizenship, vision, and leadership. Adopted this 5th day of January 2021 in the city of Manitou Springs, El Paso County, Colorado. Thank you. We will move on to the next item. Business item H1 calls for the approval of the mayor's signature regarding the easement associated with MNS 2006 minor subdivision to create 2 platted lots. This is for 2 through 4 and 10 Canyon Avenue, Beth Pasteur for Twin Bears Property LLC and Glass Shop Property LLC applicant. And I believe we'll have some discussion from the planning department first. Okay. So Judy, if you would bring over our planning person. Good evening, Christine.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, you have the floor.
Should Michelle be over as well?
Yeah, we
Michelle
should bring
is
Michelle
the
over
one
too.
presenting on this. Yep, I'll be here to support, but she's presenting on this one.
I'll never get used to seeing myself on this screen ever. It's like looking in the worst mirror. Good evening, everyone. And if I could, before I get started on this item, I just wanted to thank you all for Mark Moreland's resolution. He remained a friend of mine and excuse me, was someone that deserved all of those words. So I want to thank you for that. In regard to this request, there's really a couple of signatures that we're asking the council for. One is on the actual plat that was approved by the Planning Commission, because it does create a tract from some city-owned property that's basically the alignment of the creek that runs through a portion of the area that the plat covers. And so since that tract is being created as the owner of that property, the city has to have a signature on the plat before it can be filed. So it would be to obtain that approval. And then since there is existing encroachment over that tract currently, there's one of the buildings actually crosses over the creek entirely. The creek is under the building, basically at the back. Then we have proposed an encroachment license. Instead of an actual easement, it would be a revocable encroachment license that the city attorney has provided in your packet. So those are really the two actions. The plat itself, it was a minor subdivision and it was approved at the November Planning Commission meeting. But because, like I said, the city has property involved, we need a signature on that plat. And then we also need approval for the mayor's signature on the encroachment license. So I can go into a lot of detail about the plat itself if you want. I can certainly answer more questions. It can be a somewhat convoluted explanation. Just very, very shortly, the buildings involved, the property involved were owned at one point by a single person or a couple. That couple passed away and their family members inherited different parts of the property. And when they came in to try to do repairs on existing improvements, we discovered that we had encroachments not only between the private properties, but then over the city property as well. And so this is trying to clean all of that up and get everybody on their own property and get where they can't be on their own property, where they encroach over the city property, get that under an approval. So in the future, if somebody needs to repair something, it's not a mess for them, basically. So I'm happy to answer questions or try to go into more detail, whatever you desire.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed that Alan Delwich, the Planning Commission chair, has his hand raised. I don't know if he wants to speak to that, if that's his intent here. Judy, could you check with Mr. Delwich and see why he's got his hand raised? I wonder if he wants to talk to this.
Actually had it up during the F3 discussion as well. So maybe if we can just ask him to lower the hand and then raise it again if he does, that would be a really quick way for us to see.
Yeah, yep. Okay, down.
Okay, it just went away.
Okay,
If it comes back. Okay.
I guess it's not coming back. Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Delwich. I thought maybe he had something significant there that he wanted to add. Okay, Councilor Chandler, I believe you had your hand up.
I just had a quick question. The second whereas statement refers to Exhibit A and the depiction in the Exhibit A, and my Exhibit A was blank page, and if it was sent later after the packet went out, I didn't get it. I'm wondering if, Michelle, if you have it, Exhibit A, if you could put it on the screen.
Are you talking about the Canyon Avenue item or the next one on the agenda, the ordinance?
Well, I thought I was talking about this one, and it says the revocable license agreement, the second whereas, it just says licensee seeks permission from the city, and it says it's depicted in Exhibit A attached hereto and incorporated herein by this reference of the structure. And when I scroll down to Exhibit A, the page is blank.
It's
And
not
I'm-
here. It's
I just
not here.
visually, so
I can pull that up if you'd like.
I'm a real visual person. I was just wondering if you have it. It's not a deal breaker. I was just wondering if you have it, if you could put it on the screen.
I think more than likely what we would use is that section of the minor subdivision that covers the tract that's created over that area. Let me see if I can get you that so that you can see it.
Michelle, I have it up. I can pull it up right now.
Yeah, if you would,
Yeah, give me just 1 second.
would do that,
here.
Christine, that would help.
Sure. Okay. Okay, so. let me pull this over
Okay,
here.
you know what? I do see that. Okay, I'm wrong. I stand corrected. I see
No,
that.
that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, it would just be this tract area that's
Just had
in
to-
back.
Past the second part of it. Thank you so much. I
No problem.
apologize.
No problem.
Well, wait, do you have any questions for Michelle at this point? It seems to be a pretty straightforward thing. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move that we approve the mayor to sign the easement associated with MNS 2006 minor subdivision 2 through 4 and 8 Canyon Avenue, as well as the revocable license agreement.
Thank you. Counselor Wolf, we have a second from Counselor Wolf. All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you,
you.
Christine.
I think I've got the
So-
next one too.
Okay, right. Yeah, the next item, first reading of ordinance number 0221, an ordinance amending the zoning code of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado to rezone the private property known as 6 South Path from commercial to high-density residential zoning district. Okay, Michelle?
Certainly. So this property, 6 South Path, is the residential duplex that is currently owned and is in back of the Manitou Arts Center. And the MAC is going through a process to replat the 513 Manitou Avenue property to basically create a lot for this residential use so that it can be ultimately, if they want to sell it at some point in the future, it can be separated from the commercial part of the property. And as part of that process, rezoning this property, the residential portion of the property, we recommended that it would be good zoning practice to do that. It was approved by Planning Commission, again, at their November meeting, and it would only rezone what will be Lot 2 of the MAC subdivision, that is the residential area that lies to the south of the MAC building and the parking lot that most of you are probably familiar with. So that really is the gist of the request. We currently, because the plat, there were some variances involved that have been approved by the Planning Commission, and the plat is being done administratively. We just haven't completed the processing of that. So the rezoning does reference Lot 2 MAC subdivision. We'll be getting that finished up, and then we'll be able to file this ordinance and put a graphic with it that shows that lot. But you can see from the information that was provided, like in the staff report and that type of thing, where we're talking about where this property is, and that would be the area that would comprise Lot 2 MAC subdivision. So this is first reading, and we are recommending approval.
Great, thank you. Counselor Wolf?
Oh, so there's already a duplex there, is that right?
Yes.
And is HDR the only option?
It's the option that provides the least variance. They had to get a density variance because it is a small parcel of property, and there wasn't really any option to add additional square footage of land area. So we looked at both general residential and high density residential, neither of which will allow more units to be developed without further variances. But the HDR zone allowed a variance of only, like, I think it was about 800 square feet for the 2 existing units, that it was short under that zone, short the square footage. And the GR zone would have required a variance almost, I think it was about 3,000 square feet. So it was quite considerably more of a variance that would have had to have been approved. So the Planning Commission approved the variance under the HDR regulations so that it was a smaller amount. But I think the important thing is they can't develop more units under either of those zone designations.
And I guess if I understand you correctly, we're also not setting a precedent to go with HDR versus just general residential based on the location or anything public policy. It's just, It's just so we're minimizing the extent of the waiver request, basically, is the reason we're going in that direction.
That was one of the reasonings. If you look at the HDR zone, the purpose, it also fits the purpose of that zone because it does talk about residential locations that are in close proximity to commercial uses and that type of thing. So,
Right.
you know, it is consistent with the zoning in regard to the purpose of that zone. And then it also reduces the area density that had to be approved in order to make everything conform.
Right. Oh, thank you.
Questions from Miss Anthony? Okay, seeing there's no further questions. I guess I would entertain a motion to approve this.
I move approval of this on first reading.
Thank you. Do we have a second? We have a second by Counselor Wolf. We have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? No? Okay, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand, please. Okay, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Very
Thank you,
good.
council. I'm going to hang out for a little bit, but I don't think I'll be presenting any other ones.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, next item is first reading of ordinance number 0121, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, imposing a temporary one-year moratorium on the acceptance of applications for vacation rentals. And I believe we'll hear from planning.
Yes, thank you. So earlier this year, I guess in 2020, mid 2020, we came to you and we had some discussion at a work session and then subsequently at regular meetings about short-term rentals and putting a moratorium on there. That was supported by Planning Commission, ultimately supported by this group as well. The intent when the Planning Department last spoke to you about this was that we would have ample opportunity to put together a survey for the community. We would be engaging with all of you on that as we were developing it, looking forward to additional public engagement, and had anticipated that by December we would come back with some sort of a proposal. Due to time constraints beyond our control, we were not able to get through that process. We recognized as well during this that we would be kicking off, which we did last month, be kicking off the municipal zoning code rewrite project. And as we were looking at that, identified that through the public outreach we'll be doing and those various vehicles for doing that, this would actually probably be a really good opportunity to maximize community engagement on it, recognizing that there just wasn't a lot of appetite in the community to participate in many things. So we knew that we needed to come back to you and request an extension of this moratorium. In considering the length of time, typically it would be a 3 to 6 month period of time. And 1 year is unusually long, but we chose the 1 year and we're requesting the 1 year so that it coincides with that municipal zoning code update and rewrite project that will be going on. So that's really what it is. We're not looking to change any of the verbiage of what was approved in the summer. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or if there are any concerns, look to address those.
Thank you. Council, Councilor Wolf.
This is a question for Jeff Parker. So does that sound like a good reason to extend for a year, Jeff, without us getting in trouble for abusing our extension privileges or our moratorium privileges, I should say?
Well, the law is that you basically need to be working with due diligence on an item that you've got a moratorium in place for. Typically 6 months to a year has been upheld depending upon the issue. I think because of COVID, there's probably a little more room for justification and not getting things done as quickly as they would have in the past. So it's probably as good as any right now. But obviously I'd recommend that staff and city council, keep working with due diligence to move this forward as quickly as they can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Council, other questions? Okay. I do have a question, Christine. I doubt that this is presenting any hardship on anyone because it's been in a moratorium state for a while. But I think it's reasonable to ask, is there anything pending or is there a hardship that we should be aware of?
That's a great question. We have had very, very high level interest emails from a couple of folks who are looking to invest in Manatee Springs. We have had one individual who is interested in submitting an application again, but that prior application had gone to Planning Commission, and Planning Commission sent that individual back with a number of items that needed to be taken care of and addressed before they would consider it again. And those items have not been accomplished. So this does not pose a hardship for him.
Okay.
And we have been working with existing owners to ensure that they maintain their business licenses and that none expire, because if they expired, then that obviously would put their status in danger. So we have been working with them, as has the finance office.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other questions from council? I gather we don't. I'd entertain a motion to approve. See a motion from Councilor Wolf. Do we have a second? We have a
I'll second.
Okay, so we have seconds both from Mayor Pro Tem Fortune and from Councilor Chandler. Okay, great. Okay, all in favor, vote aye. Show your hand, please. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Very good. Thank you, Christine.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, next item, approval of construction agreement for Becker's Lane project. Okay. As we entertained this on December the 15th, and of course, there were a number of questions that came out of that session. My understanding is that Mr. Parker has looked over the contract and made some modifications. So I guess to start off with, I'd like to ask Mr. Parker to speak to those changes and try to address some of the concerns that were expressed several weeks ago. Mr. Parker?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And so, I was there for the meeting, last meeting we had where Councilmember Chandler had some questions, and I commented that I think I understand at least part of the source of those questions was that there really wasn't a very detailed reference to the contract documents or a reference to the attached scope of services as part of the construction contract. And I went back and spoke with Dole, and he provided me with sort of all the background material that was provided as part of the RFP in the first place, and that the city's engineers used to prepare the actual RFP packet, and also that all the different bidders reviewed and then actually based their bids upon. I can understand why Councilor Chandler had some concerns, because she was just looking at like a very detailed Excel spreadsheet of the different line items in a bid. So what I've done is I put together a construction contract that was based upon how the engineers prepared the original RFP. And then I referenced all the different contract documents that basically make up the overall contract. There's a lot of ways to do this. And a lot of times when engineers put together a pretty, at least a relatively expensive or big construction project, and they plan it out, they'll use certain different types of form engineering construction contracts. And one of them is pretty popular. It's by the, I gotta get their acronym right. It's EJCDC. It's the Engineers Joint Committee. What is it, on contract documents? And so that's a pretty hefty contract. And in fact, some of the material that they had used to prepare the actual bid packet on behalf of the city did reference those contracts, but they weren't actually using those contracts officially. So what I did was I made sort of a hybrid contract, which is what we kind of do in a lot of cases anyways. We have just a real simple few-page contract that then references all the other documents that basically are part of that contract. And so if you see in front of you, you'll see in the first section, it says A defined term is the contract documents, and it lists A through, I think it's like F or G. I can't have two screens open right now, but it's got all the different documents that basically are going to make up this contract. And those include everything that the engineer prepared, and then a lot of these submittals by the winning bidder. And hopefully, although they're relatively hefty, and they actually include CDOT's road and bridge specifications manual, which includes a number of terms that were incorporated into our contract. That's about 600 pages long of fun reading, but it definitely hopefully provides some more background and some more substance to what is actually being contracted for. And I understand that a lot of the material that was attached is really engineering specific, like the plans and specifications, I think are maybe 100 pages or so of pretty heavy duty engineering diagrams and documents. But that was the material that we had in place and ready to go that everybody bid on at the time. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of going on, but hopefully that makes a little more sense and provides a little more substance to what actually is included in the contract and what the city's agreeing to pay for.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
You're welcome.
Council members, do you have questions for Mr. Parker at this point? Councilor Wolf?
Thank you. One concern I had, Jeff, was to ensure there was a specific drawing incorporated by reference into the contract, which identifies the number and location of trees to be destructed or removed or destroyed, whatever the word is. And then we got something in the packet for tonight that had microscopic little red X's that were supposed to represent trees that are going to be removed. I wanted to confirm that that drawing is somewhere between A and P as in Paul, because those are the incorporated by reference documents, but I didn't see anything that just says like easy picture of trees to be destroyed. The other part of my question, if I may, is also, and I know this was addressed some in an email we got today, but I just wanted to confirm that there is a definitive number of trees to be destroyed that is consistent with respect to the picture I think might be missing or that I'm asking to be incorporated. And because right now the bid, I don't know if it was the bid or the contract or what the hell, but something said 17 trees. I want to make sure we're not paying for and we're not authorizing destruction of that many trees. And I also wanted to see exactly where their lighting proposal is on here. Is that one of these subsections?
Yeah, so basically I'm looking at the construction contract, and what I referenced was in 1E is the project specifications, the final design submittal set, and then section G, the construction plans themselves, which were prepared by the engineer. And so I did not look through all the specifications. I was, trusting on staff and engineer that what they actually show or what staff wants to have done on behalf of the city. I don't want to put this on Dole's plate, but maybe he can refer to the plans, because I do believe Dole's probably looked these over from a non-legal perspective, might be able to answer those questions.
Dole, can you respond to that?
I sure can. And per that email that Ms. Wolf referenced, the plans and specs that were attached and are on the agenda were the original ones back from September. And I only included them to kind of show the complexity and the amount of effort that goes into those plans. And the quantities in those plans do show the original 17, which is how many the original designer had scheduled to remove. And then after we went through the public meetings and we got feedback, we pared the number of trees that got removed down to the 12. And there was some confusion that the number was originally 10. And that gap in confusion was because the arborist ended up coming back to us after we first published that number 10 tree removal number and said, I also think that these two trees should also be removed because the utility work would do too much damage to the root ball. So that's the timeline. To this point, if we have a decision or resolution tonight, then the plans that are posted will all be updated and accordingly and given to the contractor, and then they will build it per that way. We've had several changes and revisions, and it's very expensive to have the designer, make every little change. So once we can all agree on the direction that we want to go, then we will get the plans to reflect those changes. And I would even suggest that any motion, if it's made, state that then you could be as specific with the numbers as you want, but we will get the plans, the engineering drawings to reflect all the correct tree removal and the lighting as well.
Thank you, Joel. Denise, a comment?
Mayor, I'm wondering if it would be best if we just start with Karen in her presentation and really walk us through where we are and how we got to where we are today, and then go from there. And I think that will answer a lot of those questions, if that's okay.
I think that's a good idea. In that case, Karen, if you would go ahead and bring us up to speed here.
Gladly. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Well, yes, I'm Karen Berchtold, a senior planner with the city's planning department, and I took over this project in about March of this year. And so Joel and I have kind of co-managed, as he's been on the technical end of things, and I've covered the community engagement and also sort of dug into the landscaping component of the project. And so, yeah, it seemed that after the last meeting, there was a wish to get better specifics about the tree removal, as we just heard, and to clarify the lighting approach and some of those alternatives. And I think perhaps make the connection between what was agreed upon in the community meeting, what the understanding was there, and making sure that that translates through to the construction drawings. And so you do have some material that describes the community engagement process and a summary of the October 15th meeting. And so overall, the project was scoped to have two community meetings. And at the second meeting, the actual bridge design was selected by those in attendance. And also folks clarified that they wanted to see the sidewalk extended from the bridge on the right side of Becker's Lane up to El Paso Boulevard, which makes a lot of sense. We have a map in Plan Manitou that supports this improvement as well. And so the first two community meetings occurred during 2019. And so then in 2020, we focused more on the streetscape, and there was a lot of effort to address the utilities work. And so we had a meeting on September 23rd, 2020, and this was led by the consultants. And you may remember that there were some technical issues with folks getting into the meeting or fully participating. But overall, there was discussion and concern expressed about the tree removal, some of the selected tree species, and lots of interest about the lighting, and also the closure and how that would impact businesses. And so under that situation, we committed to having a second meeting. And so we scheduled that for October 15th and used the city's Zoom software. And in the meantime, we did a lot of engagement within our team, and also reaching out to community members to talk about the tree selection types, talked with our city gardener and our pollinators group, And as Dole mentioned, we did engage an arborist. And so we marked the areas of disturbance, and the arborist provided his opinion that a particular number of trees would not remain viable. Although they seem healthy now, they because the cluster of 10 trees have been intensively pruned, they aren't sustainable. That's going to cause them to lose branches over time. So they aren't gonna grow into a better canopy. And we also explored some other ideas for the multi-use trail and then some other lighting options. And so I'll just grab the screen if I may. And just would like to find a few, present a few graphics that I think will explain this a little bit better. And so just a couple images that I think are also in your packet. This is the view looking north on Becker's Lane. And so you can see on the east side here, this is one of the clusters of trees. This is the cluster of 5 south of the driveway. And then looking from the intersection with El Paso South, you can see on the east side of the roadway here, these are some of the trees that have been very harshly pruned. And so you can see how they're really missing that inner canopy because of the overhead line there. And so I'll also add that we did do tons of outreach to make sure that the second meeting was a success. And so I worked closely with our PIO. We had several social media updates. We provided an explanation of the September 23rd meeting and our commitment to the new meeting in the Pikes Peak Bulletin. We developed a stakeholder list of about 36 folks who had attended meetings or provided comments. We updated, we sent an updated frequently asked questions list and posted that on the project website. We did a blast to our Plan Manitou email list, which is about 500 people. And I also reached out to the Parrot Chair. And so I wanted to share this graphic, and these were all presented at the October 15 meeting. And I think, I apologize if it's a little washed out and difficult to read, but I think it's really important to provide the context for the tree removal. So this is looking north along Becker's. And so these are trees on the west side. And this aqua line here is our right of way. And so you can see that our existing trees can be protected on that side of the road. And then if you're looking on the east side of the road, again, here's the line designating our right of way. And these are the existing trees here, just to the left of that right of way. And then we have graphics that show the utilities and the distance that has to be maintained between those. And so here we can see that we have a sanitary sewer right below these trees. And so that's really causing the impact to these trees on the east side of the roadway. When we replace those trees, we actually don't have room in our right of way. So those will actually be located on the school district property, just east of our right of way. So we did have good participation in our Zoom meeting. We had about 29 people. And so we further discussed the need for the tree removal. And again here, with this graphic, this is the concept that we presented that shows both landscaping and lighting. And so in this area here, there are 10 existing trees, 1 ash, 9 elms, and all of those really were recommended for removal because they, A, are not healthy, and B, would not, could not sustain the construction impacts. And then south of the access to parking is a cluster of 5 trees. And the arborist concluded that 2 of those would need to be removed, but 3 could remain viable. And then we also proposed some other trees on the west side of the roadway because the multi-use trail is going to be shifted slightly. So that created an opportunity for some landscaping there. And so we further discussed the types of trees that would be proposed, and we worked closely with the city's gardener and selected 3 species that she recommended and that the project landscape architect also supported. We have some lighting information here too. I think I'm going to come back to that. And so these are what the 3 trees on 3 tree types on the east side of the roadway will look like. They're all of medium to large size canopy, and they'll do well in this urban setting. We also work closely with our pollinator advocates, Melody Doherty, and came up with a palette of pollinators. She really appreciated that we included grasses that will bloom throughout the year. And so we did learn that the desire was to have a complex landscape under these trees, to have layers, variety of color and textures. And this is the diagram that I think Councilmember Wolf was referring to, where the existing trees are depicted with green circles, and those trees that will be removed are depicted with a red graphic. So just to clarify that this is consistent with the concept that was presented at the October 15th meeting. So next, I think we'll delve into lighting, and I think folks felt that it was a productive discussion at the October 15th meeting, and we did share the approach for lighting, and there was a lot of discussion about lighting, particularly the type of lighting to be used on the bridge, and we got support show of support for 2 different approaches for lighting there. And so as we concluded the meeting, what we determined was that there was some interest in further exploring the number of lights to use on Becker's Lane, and also the type that would be used on the bridge. And so this first type is what we call Acorn, and that is what was proposed to be on the bridge. And subsequently, we've learned that our request to dim the intensity of that light by 70% was approved. And so that lighting will be substantially reduced in intensity. And the second type that would be used for Becker's Lane is what we call this Shepherd's Crook type lighting. And that's considered a dark sky type of light. And generally, we do have policies in our comp plan Manitou, that really support using dark sky type lighting, but we don't really have standards in place as to where we should use them and how many to use at this point in time. But that's certainly something that we should explore. And generally for dark sky lighting, that means that these fixtures or luminaires will reduce glare, will reduce light trespass. So that means that the extent of the lighting, really trying to focus the lighting on the area of activity, and overall not polluting the light sky. And so this supports habitat. It creates a certain ambiance, also supports stargazing. And so our lighting consultant, David Roederer, determined that the lighting on Becker's Lane was most consistent with this this type here with the orange arrow, that the lighting would kind of fall under a 180-degree plane. And so let's see, I'm going to back up a little bit and go back to this concept. And so again, this shows where the lighting is proposed. There are 4 fixtures proposed for the bridge and 6 fixtures proposed for the Becker's Lane roadway. And so we did have discussions amongst our team and generally supported retaining this number of lighting. And I know Dole has focused on this as well, and you may want to add to this discussion, Dole.
Karen, I think you did great.
Thank you.
Let me back up to the trees just for a second. And Karen, if you want to go back to that picture, and then we can come back to the lights of the picture looking south on Becker's.
Mm-hmm.
That one. So really, as long as those utility lines are there, those trees are going to continuously be trimmed and pruned by Colorado Springs Utilities. So one of the nice things about this project is we're going to bury all of the overhead electric and utility lines. So therefore, when these new trees, which will be smaller, are planted, they will never be subject to CSU cutting the trees to make room for their utility lines. So that is something that is a major benefit, is that those trees will be allowed to grow and thrive naturally and not have to have their crowns cut out. Just wanted to add that. And then if you want to go, Karen, back to your view, go to the the engineering drawing real quick. So this information will be, first of all, this line work is all from the designer, but the plans will reflect this level of information with this level of detail if this is approved. And then I think, Karen, if you just want to go, the point was at our last meeting, we had not heard back yet from Colorado Springs Utilities if they would approve of the use of the dimmers. Because CSU maintains the lights, they have to approve of the materials so that they are comfortable with it. They have it on hand. They know how to use it. And since that last meeting, they have approved the use of a dimmer switch. And I did include it. You probably didn't need to see it, but it was that FAW multiplier chart. And there's basically 10 settings. 10 is the most the full wide open. And level 1 reduces the light by 70%. So it reduces it to 30% of the maximum. And in consultation with a lighting consultant, he felt like that would still be sufficient to provide the right amount of pedestrian light and safety light and not create a strobe effect on the street, but still, and reduce the concern and hopefully help eliminate the concern of having it be lit up like a stadium and infringing on people's, dark skies.
Thank you, Dole. Karen, did you have anything else you wanted to call to our attention?
I don't think so, but I did feel that our team worked very hard to try to minimize impacts, including to 5 private property owners along the roadway. And so I just wanted to share that observation.
Okay, good. Yeah, good point. Thank you. Council, I think this is a good time to ask questions. If you have questions, let's go ahead and see what we can learn. Councilman Bremner?
Yeah, yesterday, Nancy and I met fortuitously at the Safeway, and then we decided to go over and walk that section over by Becker's Lane and take a look at it. And just to get eyes on the ground and see what it looks like. And I think it's, we looked at all the trees and we saw, you know, the state of them and got a good feeling for it. And I'm very impressed with the project. I think it's been very well done. I think taking into consideration all the input from the town halls and the community input, and you've Dole and Karen, you've responded to the concerns of the people and changed the lighting and really done a great job. I think it's going to be a great improvement. Just walking along that Becker's Lane, it was a little bit scary because some of the cars are just zooming through there, and it's a dangerous curve there, and it's a blind spot for the bikes trying to cross the road on that crosswalk. And I think it's going to be a great improvement and make it more biker friendly in that part of the neighborhood. And also the ball field, you know, kids trying to get to that ball field, it's dangerous with no sidewalk. And replacing that bridge and putting a sidewalk in there is going to make a great improvement. So those are just comments and not questions. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Councilor Bremner. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, it was great walking with Steve yesterday, and we ran into Judith as well. So that was kind of nice. Since she lives right on the other side of El Paso there. Looking at this a lot and hearing from a lot of people, and I've walked through it and I've driven through it and I've ridden my bike through it. In fact, I went again at about 5 o'clock today just to take yet another look at it. So I was very pleased with the process that everyone went through to get to the design that we currently have. It seems like the community press went really well, and it could be an example of how we do these things in the future. I saw Dole and Karen really, really trying to make compromises and so on. So I really appreciated that. And I think I suspect that some of the current pushback might be due to incomplete information on some folks' parts. Because we've seen some emails recently that the lighting would be way too bright. And it just, from the packet and from Karen's briefing this evening, it doesn't seem like that will be the case. I think most importantly, there's been a lot of give and take on quite a number of the issues. In the end, I think because of that give and take, we've got a much, much better design, and one that is good for Manitou with no one interest group. And there were a number of interest groups here, winning or losing. I think that there was some good discussion and solutions that came up with. And Dole said something at our last meeting that really struck me, and that was the concept of balance in this design. And it was balance between safety and the dark skies desire, between trees and undergrounding, between neighborhood desires and the needs of the larger city. To me, it just seems like this design really does a great job at balancing all that stuff. But I want to address a couple things. I went down again specifically to look at the lighting because I'm not a lighting expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I was worried about the numbers down there. And when I went to look at it, given the height of the proposed lights and the fact that they're reduced to 30% illumination and dark skies compliant, and the fact that also in Karen's, one of Karen's papers that she put in our packet, it talked about that if you don't have enough lights, it causes additional confusion to drivers. So I think that as a lighting expert, they tried to make that, again, a good compromise. And to me, it just seemed like there'd be, excuse my poetry here, but gentle pools of light along Becker's Lane. And as most of you know, infrastructure for biking and pedestrians is one of my passions. So I would definitely be considered an interest group there, or, and as I look at it, infrastructure for pedestrians and bikes is a long-term project in this city. We don't have as good of infrastructure as I think, and many others who are interested in that need. And I would suggest that the more we make our infrastructure supportive of biking and pedestrian, the fewer cars we'll have, which is in and of itself supportive of the environment, the long-term environmental goals. So that's another trade-off I think we need to think about. So bottom line, I was very impressed, and I really want to commend the staff and the community and the URA, because they're paying for this project, for coming together and to come up with this, what I consider to be a very balanced, high quality design. And I would like to get this moved forward, because if we're going to approve it, it needs to be done sooner rather than later, so that they can get started and get it finished sooner rather than later. So anyway, thank you. A lot of talking, but I'm impressed, and thank you to staff. And one last thing is, boy, as I was reading the packet, the complexity of this project is just phenomenal. And there's no way I could read the entire packet, all those engineering designs and stuff I just gave up on. So hats off to you guys for figuring all that out. Thanks.
Councillor Chandler?
I have a quick question, but I'd like to preface it with saying that the difference between this presentation and the contract that was posted, slipped into the consent calendar is night and day. Kudos to everyone who did a phenomenal job. It was, like I said, just night and day. And I want to say, in the future, I hope that we never put on the consent calendar a contract of this scope, complexity, and cost, that we always put this out for as a separate agenda item. I have a statement to make, but I have a quick question of you, Karen. Could you go back to the trees, the tree types that you mentioned that are coming in right there? So when you look at those tree types, they look great because they're adult trees with canopy. What is the actual age of the trees that are being planted? Because they will not be full growth trees. Is that my understanding? They'll be baby trees?
I don't know the age, but they will be a 4-inch caliper, which is a pretty good size. And in part that was selected so that the deer won't nibble them.
And the 4-inch caliper, do you know, or does anyone in the audience know how long it takes for a tree of a 4-inch caliper to reach the look of what you're presenting to us? These nice trees, size.
I
20, 30.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I just wanted to make a brief statement. I'm in a very unique position because of everyone on council and who's attendant tonight. I live on Becker's Lane, and I'm over there probably every day. I was over there today looking at the trees as well. I know that wherever we live in this town, we really want the same things. Right? We don't want light pollution in our neighborhood, and we don't want our trees cut down, and we don't want increased traffic. And that is true for Becker's Lane. And as excited as even I am about the prospect of the improvements that this project will make, when I talk to most of my neighbors, they're very hesitant about having Becker's Lane being the gateway to Garden of the Gods. We don't really want more traffic. And we feel the same way as people in Crystal Hills feel. When you guys want to see the night sky and the stars, we want to see those too. And we're very worried as a community of what the potential for the future of Becker's Lane is. We just really are truly scared. The other concern, and I've talked to many people, and as recently as today, that originally the community meetings were talking about 10 trees, and then it may surprise you, I've negotiated many contracts in my professional career, and I do understand what a unit is. It went to 17, and now it's at 12. And I did talk to some people today that are very concerned about the nebulous number and feel like they have a fear that might change. So, if it's 12 trees, I want to make sure that it's 12 trees and that when we get in there, it's not, oops, 17 trees again. So I know that that's a concern. The last comment I want to make before we go anywhere else is that we have a couple local tree experts, and I've been in communication both through email and phone, again, as late as today. And there are several experts, tree experts, that feel that we still do not have to take out all 12 trees. So I'm wondering, did this arborist have any communications with our local experts who live here or close to here about these old growth trees? And also, I've been working for over a year on the Climate Action Work Group, and we have been planting trees. And we achieved, through the hard work of many, Tree City USA status. But I just want to let everyone know that that is not a permanent designation. And when we start removing heritage trees like these, we have to reapply, and we have to let them know what the canopy is and what the carbon sequestration is, and so on and so forth, so that we can decide whether we're going to lose that designation when we start taking these trees out. So I'm just putting that out there. My main question is, has there been an opportunity for the arborist that you hired to talk to our local tree experts regarding these 12 trees?
They did not speak directly. No.
Because as recently as today, there's a tree expert here in town that really feels seriously that there are a few of these trees that could be saved, regardless of how pruned back CSU, the damage that has been done through the pruning of these trees for the power lines. So I realize that everything that I'm saying is probably just very symbolic. Just as Rocky, when he was protesting the Canyon Avenue trees, very symbolic. But I have to make that that last statement, that I'm still concerned about the 12 heritage trees that are coming out. Otherwise, I think the plans are really phenomenal. So that is my sole concern.
Counselor. Other counselors, do you have comments? Let's see. I can't. Okay, Mr. Shada, I see your hand up.
Yes, I went down with my long 100-foot tape measure and measured. And my feeling is that I guess I would like to see that I kind of like the concept of the number of trees that we have to necessarily take out, that we would, plant 2 or 3 times the number. And so that's one proposal I have for the tree thing, because I don't know how to sort out all the needs for what trees need to be taken out in that construction zone. But it seems like to me, there's a lot of room on El Paso Boulevard along the ball fields for a lot of trees to be planted. And that would be my suggestion, is that we pay forward by essentially having this project pay for, maybe 2 or 3 times the amount of trees that are essentially being taken out, and have them planted there along El Paso, along the ball fields there. The second thing that I would like to propose is that I don't see why we'd have 4 lights on the bridge. Okay. And to me, it seems like looking at essentially a semi-residential area, which is what this is sort of kind of a feeder street, kind of coming into a residential area. By my best calculations, it seems like to me, we need 4 lights. 1 light on the bridge, 1 light at the curve, 1 light at the crosswalk, and a 5th light, what I call the 5th tree down from Becker's. And it seems like to me that would save us a whole bunch of money, and we would really, and that all those lights should be dark sky and that Shepherd's Crook design. That would be my feedback and proposal.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Shada. Let's see, do we have council members who have not spoken on this yet? I think we've cycled through pretty well. Councilor Wilbur, did you want to make comments on this?
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments on this. And I guess they're mainly just comments based on going back my previous 2 years on council before 2020. I understand the community trust issues and how we got there, but I just want to give a shout out to having an in-house engineer, because this has made a huge difference, I think, for those of us who have been on council prior to this, or even people who have attended council members regularly. This was a great, I think, decision that we made to have an in-house dedicated engineer. And I think that that helps with trust. And it also, Dole has been very available. And I just want to say that I think that for those people, we've certainly gotten some council correspondence on this. That's one of the many things we're doing differently now that should make this better. And I just wanted to just draw some attention on that. And that on all these things, perspective is always so different and so hard to balance. And that's what we're asking planning and the URA and Dole and all of city staff that works on this to do. And just a very quick anecdotal story. On my street, we had 2 streetlights that went out, and we, at the time, we kind of all decided we liked dark sky, and we sort of never called them into CSU, which I then learned when being on council, we were paying for them anyway, which is a whole separate issue. But we had a new retailer move in not too long ago in an upstairs downtown retail space, and it's a hard space, right? Being upstairs retail is just really hard for anybody who's familiar with retail. And one day he pulled me aside and he said, "Why aren't these lights on?" And I'd feel better. I'm putting on my own lighting on the building, and I just wish they were on. And we were like, "Oh, gee, okay." And we turned them on. And so this is just a really hard thing to balance, and things change. And, change is hard. And we don't, we have to find the compromise from having crumbling infrastructure to new infrastructure and improved infrastructure. And I wish that we could make everybody happy on this. And I really appreciate the community coming forward and consistently bringing forth their ideas and perspective. And I really appreciate city staff, especially having an in-house engineer that can really help us on this. And those are the comments. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Wilberg. Well, for my 2 cents, I like the design as it's presented. I could certainly support that. I do have personal angst anytime a tree comes down, but I think all living things have their life cycle. The trees they're there now on the east side of Becker's Lane they've been maltreated. They've been butchered. I think going forward, the approach that's proposed here to bury the power lines, bury the utilities, and then provide an environment where we can have new trees grow up and not have their canopies interrupted by power lines. I think that's a step forward. I think looking into the future, I think that's the solution. I'm not an arborist, but I've been told that the best time to plant a tree is to do it 20 years ago. So maybe if we think 20 years into the future, we'll have the dream that we want now. But I could certainly support what we've got now. I think some other council members have made comments that are good. I like Mr. Shade's idea of planting more trees up along El Paso Boulevard. I'd like to make that a separate project and kind of work through things. So that's kind of where I stand. So council, we've got a couple of options here. I guess I'd kind of like to know your druthers. Do we want to, are we at a point now where we want to discuss this some more, or do we want to go ahead and vote?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
I'm prepared to say something.
Oh, sorry. I can't, I can only see the presentation. I can't see people
I
on
know,
the screen.
can we get the presentation off the screen?
Okay, so in that case, let's take the presentation down, and then when that's down, Councilor Wolf, if you'd like to make your comments.
Yeah, I'm just a little unclear. So this is a question back to Jeff. One of my concerns last time was that the contract very specifically incorporate by reference what appears to be now 12 and no more than 12 trees, and which ones they will be to be removed. So it sounds like that's not incorporated by reference because it's none of the things A through P, or did I miss that? I never really got a clean answer on that.
So my understanding is that the reference to the project specifications in A through P does reference the trees to be destroyed. However, the exhibit that was originally created does not include the correct number of trees. And I think Dole said that upon council's approval, which you could do subject to the revision, the plans and specifications that are referenced will be modified to reference the 12 trees that are going to be destroyed, if I have that correct.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
No, you're welcome.
The concern I had, and I got phone calls from just 3 people who were very adamant though. I don't see why we need this many lights on a little street. I mean, why don't we have this many lights on Nancy's block? Why don't we need them? It's going to a residential area. I don't think it's right. And the people in this neighborhood, they voted hell no when Parab proposed lighting up the tennis courts for a few hours in the evening so that people could play at night on a nice summer evening, and the neighborhood went nuts. And the neighborhood is now sick and tired of this, and there are probably very few, if any, people appearing tonight because that's what happens with public engagement. You drag people to meetings for 18 months and they're over it. They feel like, you know, they're told, oh, we can't do what you want and sorry or whatever, or they just burn out. So I think this is way too many lights for a little street. Like, what's the point? Is that why? Is Judith Chandler right? Or are we trying to get ready? So this is the new, you know, main road to get over to Garden of the Gods. And the other thing is when things, Joel said something about, oh, people will be confused if it's not light enough. Well, we've all driven this road for decades. I've never felt confused, you know, and there are going to be sidewalks there. So I don't think it's really confusing. In fact, if it is a little confusing, it makes people slow down, which is what we want. So I'm very upset about the number of lights. That's lovely. They're going to be dimmed, but it still, to me, looks kind of stupid. It looks like having a huge canopy bed in a tiny bedroom. It's like when you first drive into town from Colorado Springs on the east end of town, it looks like you're, you know, on a runway or entering Las Vegas or something. So I'm not a fan. I think it's wonderful that at least they're going to be dimmed, but I don't see why we need so many. And really, here we are with COVID and everybody's worried about saving money and not giving staff any raises because, you know, COVID. And we're fighting and we're spending all this extra money against the wishes of the residents because we just can't wait to put all these lights up. But since there's so many damn lights, oh, we'll solve the problem. Rather than reducing them, we're just going to put dimmers on them. I mean, what? I don't get it. I'm not happy with it. And I don't think it's fair to the public. And, you know, we talk about balancing concerns. I think the concerns are first and foremost, the people who live there. They're going to have fewer trees and more lights. That's not nice. They didn't even want lights for a few hours in the tennis courts. And these are going to be on all night. So that's my position.
All right, thank you. Councillor Chandler, and then we'll have Mayor Pro Tem. Councillor Chandler.
I just want to say thank you. I know these discussions are really difficult to have, but I'm so grateful that we're having them because it's just like the library and the issues of the residents that live around the library and about that lighting and the traffic and the, you know, heritage trees around the library. So we all, those of us who live in it, you know, and represent certain areas of town, you know, I think we can all agree that, you know, we have a lot of the same issues. So I know this is difficult. I'm hearing 3 things emerge. First of all, again, I think this is a phenomenal project. But living in the neighborhood, I served on the Parab board when we were talking about the putting lights on the tennis courts, and people went postal. And then there was a talk about, well, why don't we extend that lighting to the skateboard park? And that was even a worse issue. And then I heard I had people coming to my house concerned about that school district 14 was going to light up the baseball diamond in the soccer field at night. And so there is that big concern, but what I'm hearing us say, we have to come out around to a solution. So I would support less lighting on the street. I agree. We don't need as much lighting. I also support Councillor Shada's recommendation that a tree isn't just a tree. And while it will never solve the issue, and gosh, I hope we're here in 20 years to have this discussion, because we may not be if we keep doing this to the trees in our community. But because this project, I do believe is going to get approved, to have as a separate item and follow through on planting realistically, sized trees on El Paso. And lastly, I would like to see the arborist have a conversation with Becky Elder, Mary Ellen Montgomery, Melody Doherty, our local experts. And I don't see any harm in having discussion per tree. Go and look at all those 12 trees. How long can that take? And have a discussion and have their input before we go do that, because I'm not a tree expert, but they are. And the conversation I had today was very compelling, that a few of these trees can be saved. And if they can't, they can't. But I think it's worth having the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, I believe you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the Native Sun Construction contract for the Becker's Lane project, with the caveat that no more than 12 trees be taken out. And I will leave it at that. I tell you, I am supportive of the lighting program. I was also with Parab when the lighting on the tennis court, or whatever courts they were, was discussed. And there were some people that were against it, but I can't say that it was an overwhelming, I don't remember it being an overwhelming, but the decision was made not to recommend lighting the tennis courts. But I think that was a different situation. So anyway, that's my recommendation, or that's my motion, is to approve the contract as written, with the addition that no more than 12 trees be taken out. And I would also like to support the Two Johns by looking as a separate project as incorporating more trees if at all possible. Planting of more trees if at all possible.
Could I entertain a friendly amendment about the lighting, that we decrease the lighting to the fewest amount of the fewest amount of lights possible in that area?
My sense is that has already been addressed numerous times. So I'm hesitant to accept that friendly amendment, but I do appreciate the concern, again, because of the much shorter poles and the consideration of dark skies and the low illumination. I really think that those things have been addressed, and as a good compromise.
Can I ask if we heard from anybody in the community that wanted to weigh in, or I heard there were some people who wanted to. I just wanted to ask that before we vote.
Well, now, okay, so we have the motion. We haven't got a second yet, but to answer the question, and I don't probably do this as often as I should, thanks to Zoom, but I do see that we have several members of the audience who've raised their hands. So I think at this point, if council has no objection, it would be appropriate to hear from the people in the audience. And then if we could come back, I know that's kind of odd to have a motion out without a second. But if there are no objections, I think I see 5 hands raised. If each of those people could speak, but for a short amount of time, that would be my druthers. Is there any objection to that? Okay, not seeing an objection. City Clerk, if you would bring, looks like, is it Pixel 3A? Okay. Yeah, okay, so several things. We will be taking some public comment here. I would request that each of the individuals making public comments try to not go beyond 3 minutes. When you take the floor, please give us your name and your address. And we'll try to give everybody a chance to make some comments, and then we'll come back to the motion at hand. Okay, Pixel 3A, if you display yourself. And you're muted also.
I did send a request to ask them to unmute themselves. So I don't know if you're Pixel 3A. You don't have an actual name other than that. Okay, Mayor, if you'd like, I can go ahead and go to the next.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring the next person in. I guess that's Mary Ellen, I guess. Just looking at Alpha.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, Mary Ellen, we need you to give us your full name and address, please. And then if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, that would be appreciated.
Sure. Mary Ellen Montgomery. I live at 806 Columbine Avenue. I guess I know this is really difficult. Appreciate everybody's work. I did have a question about the storm sewer, which is really the impact on the roots. And I just haven't heard enough conversation about the storm drain and why it couldn't be located under asphalt rather than killing these trees. I think one of the fallacies is that everybody expects trees to be perfect and to have this wonderful, beautiful canopy without looking at the functionality. All the leaves are off the trees right now, and anybody can see the branch structure. If you adopt and commit to consistent best management practices where things are taken care of over time and train these trees to correct themselves, it can be done. So it's really the storm drain. It's the choices that city has made on draining this area and dumping the water into the creek without filtering the water. As far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, and let me know if it's 3 minutes because I really don't know.
Okay.
So that was the main thing. Sustainability means sustain. We have to put sustain in the word sustainability. And so it means keeping the functionality while making these improvements. I wasn't called, I expected to be called to have an alternate view on this. It worked very well on the Duclos consult. Everybody was in agreement that the arborists have a particular take on things, and they're usually trying to really make the client happy. But there are living management practices that can mitigate this stuff over time, cheaply and effectively. And if the tree dies, then we'll cut it down. Why are we making these, broad declarations that, oh, this is not a perfect looking tree? You look all over town, there are trees pruned all over town that have been living for 50 years, providing shade, transpiration, pollution mitigation, noise mitigation. All these things need to be considered as stewards. Best management practice and stewardship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Very good. And Judy, if you bring over our next speaker.
So that's Alan Delwich.
Okay.
Hi, this is Alan Delwich. I live at 210 Via Linda Vista. I've lived in this neighborhood for a little over 38 years. And my biggest concern with this project is the lighting. I was involved when we created the URA. The notion was urban renewal. And the thought was we were going to do something to Manitou Avenue to improve that area. And what this project represents to me is we're trying to urbanize our peaceful neighborhood. I don't think that's appropriate. I look at the members of the URA board. I don't see many people who live in this neighborhood. People live up in Crystal Hills. They live in other parts of town. And I think anybody who either votes on this or supports this should ask the question, do you want within 200 linear feet, 200 linear yards of your house, do you want to have 8 lights? Do you need those acorn lights lighting up the street? It makes no sense to me why we need this much light. And for the record, I went to all the meetings in 2019, and the main agenda was, do you want to have sidewalks on both sides or one side? Where do you want the bikes? We didn't talk about lighting. Lighting didn't come up until these recent meetings, these Zoom meetings. And it wasn't a question of how much light it was. It was, here's what you're going to get. And that swell that we're dimming it, but we're still not, I don't think we're still thinking it through for the impact on those people, especially those people living on El Paso Boulevard, what we're doing to their quality of life. We are just, we're obliterating the serenity of those people. And they don't live in Agate Hill, they don't live on Ruxton, they don't live in Crystal Hills, but they are citizens of Manitou. And I really think we're disrespectful to those citizens by doing this project. We don't need to urbanize Becker's Lane. We don't need to urbanize the Villas. We need to just do the rational things. Yes, we absolutely need a bridge that's safe for pedestrians. I think that part of the project is excellent. The lighting is crazy, and I don't think it represents our values. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Delwich. Very good.
Oh, hey, could I say one more thing? Just
Sure.
for the record, I'm speaking as a neighbor, as a citizen. I'm not representing any board or commission that I'm a member of. I want to make that very clear. This is my personal opinion.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Judy, I think we have one more individual.
And that would be Becky Elder.
Right.
Hi, guys. I'll try and make this really quick. First off, I love all the comments, Judith and John and Julie, and kudos to Mary Ellen. You know, these are the kind of things that we need to apply to every design. And if this is the model, we need to really go into great depth on this. But first off, Karen made a statement that lights would help create the habitat. Lights do not create habitat, period. Habitat does not need a light. So less is more. And I just wanted to bring that to our attention. Alan took it over for me. Karen also mentioned this urban setting. Please, we are a mountain community. I don't want to be in an urban setting anywhere in Manitou if I can avoid it. So applying, you know, climate shift issues to this, Mary Ellen, bless her heart, talking about this storm sewer. Trees are actually the answer for storm sewer problems. I sat on the storm sewer guys in Colorado Springs for a year, looking at their runoff issues. And so taking this above ground water that runs through that channel and putting it underground does exactly what she said. It takes all of our pollution and dumps it unfiltered right into the creek. If you look at Tucson and Boulder, towns that have been doing this for decades, there's ways of dealing with runoff water and working it into your landscapes. You save water, you clean water, you grow bigger plants. Plants grow bigger with rainwater than applied system water. So anyway, I really think there's more to think about there. Let's see here. Oh man, I made notes. So your sidewalks are increasing the heat island effect of climate change, and the bigger they are, the more the effect is. And so your shade, when your trees have shade, it cools everything underneath it. These trees, they might be ugly. They are not unhealthy. If they were unhealthy, they wouldn't look as good as they do. They are strong. They've been working in a very harsh environment, but they haven't asked anything from us. City hasn't had to go out and water them. City hasn't had to do anything for them, and they're growing. And if you look down at Red Rock Shopping Center across the street are some very trees of the same species that had their centers cut out that the city of Colorado Springs has left up for shade purposes. And to me, it's referring to the layering effect that Karen was referring to. They could be nursery trees for these younger trees. I mean, shoot, the climate has been disturbed so much, we don't even know if we can grow out big trees like that anymore. Do we really know that? I'm not so confident about that. So anyway, let these trees live as long as possible and serve purpose in reducing the effects of the climate against the new plantings and help them survive. Okay, let's see here. And there's more to say on all these things. Undergrounding water like that, there's cities in California now that are resurfacing their runoff. And that's something that we should consider. When you look at these design diagrams, they show you the full size of those trees. Those trees are not going to be nearly that big when they put them in. They're not going to provide much shade at all. And you also see that they're smaller than the trees that are coming out. The indigenous trees along the creek are cottonwoods and peach leaf willows and elms. This is the realm of the elm. Arborists do not like elms, but they love it here and they can get gigantic. The biggest tree in my neighborhood is an elm and it must be 70, 80 feet tall. And
Becky,
so,
could you sum up, please, Becky?
I'm working through my notes. Okay, I'm almost there. Dropping branches, I don't think that's a fear to worry about. And other than that, if we just apply what we know about climate change to these designs and start asking these designers to do it themselves, so we don't have to come back around and fix these things or going, hey, in view of climate change, we did this and we did this and we applied this. And I'll just leave it at that. And thank you again, you guys. I'm out.
Okay, great. Thanks, Becky. Okay. I believe we've heard from everyone who expressed an interest in speaking. So good. Thank you, Council. I appreciate your cooperation on that. Councilor Wolf?
Thank you. I have a question. I don't know who would best answer this, so I'll let you all decide, but what did the contractor say about why we can't just move the storm sewer? Or maybe that's a leading question. Did anyone ask the contractor if we could just move the storm sewer so it doesn't continue to disrupt the roots? Or was that never discussed? Because one of the things I just gleaned from Becky's statement was that we're going to keep having these problems if we don't initiate the request with in the RFP or with the actual contractor who's hired to take care of these things for us or to at least address them. So, you know, if it costs an extra $300, I think we could all agree that it'd be nice to move that storm sewer rather than trashing some otherwise old trees. So I'm just wondering what, if any, discussion was had about that?
Karen, can you respond, please?
I want to respond to a couple points and just clarify that in regard to dark sky lighting, the point that was made is that dark sky lighting can minimize impacts to habitat as opposed to more intensive lighting. So I just wanted to clarify that. We did have a discussion with the project engineer about potential green infrastructure and addressing the drainage in another manner. I came into the project fairly late in the game, but I did ask that, and it simply wasn't a possibility because of the really serious constraints with property. And so in terms of the storm sewer, I'll just note that we have to accommodate that within our city right of way. And I think you saw the diagram, and I'll share it again, that indicates that the separation between our utilities that we show down here is very tight. And I'd certainly defer to Dole if he would like to further address that point.
So it would cost like an extra $1 million to move the storm sewer, or $500,000 or $250,000, or how impossible is impossible? Because nothing's impossible. Can you give me a sense of what kind of expenditure the city would have to pay for if this kind of problem in this project just theoretically were resolved?
So I can answer that a little bit. Part of the situation here, and I actually have pictures, is that the water that intersects at Becker's and El Paso is significant. It actually struggles. The inlet in the northeast corner of that intersection gets inundated and overflows. And there's actually quite a bit of water that flows through here, more than you would expect. So that amount of runoff would overwhelm any kind of green or water treatment facility that was not a big concrete slab that absorbs the energy. Those type of green infrastructures really can only handle raindrops, not really concentrated flows. And then the other thing about moving the storm drain is there's several nuances to that. One, if it's moved outside of city right of way, then the city then has to have a maintenance and operations agreement with the property owner to be able to have access to go into that property to maintain and service that storm system. The other thing is it gets tricky is what happens if there's a leak in that storm drain system and it starts to wash out private property, right? So then there's loss that way too. So it's very much a policy, general practice. I can't tell you what that is to keep the storm drain system within city right of way. And then the third thing about the utilities, and I know we all look at the graphic that Karen posted and you see these little small circles on this big area. But these, specifically the high pressure gas line, has to have a 10-foot clearance, 5 feet on each side around it. And all of those utility lines they're all individual clearances around them. So by the time you lay out the buffers and clearances on such a narrow corridor, you run out of real estate very quickly. And then I think the fourth thing that came up that I also heard was, the comment was perhaps that some of those trees could be saved based on, not all of them, but maybe a few could, because maybe they're just outside the storm drain. Well, what that doesn't take into account is when they actually build the storm drain, they build the ditch. Usually it's a diameter and a half wide. So if it's a 30-inch pipe, they put in a 45-inch trench through there. And it's the trenching of the construction of the pipe that does the damage, because they have to then backfill with up to the flow line and compact it. So they have to have enough room in constructing that trench to lay the pipe and the backfill. So it's as much the construction of the trench that damages and harms the root ball, not so much just the edge of the pipe.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, I think we're getting to a point here. We've taken a detour here.
Raise your hand up.
Yes, Councilor Wolberg has had her hand up for.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't seen you down there. Okay, Councilor Wolberg, please.
Yes, thank you. One of the questions, and I don't know who could address this about lighting, is that we haven't talked about where there's an intersection between dark sky and safety, and maybe what kind of safety issues they're trying to solve with lighting, which is often, especially in URAs, which are considered blighted areas, you're trying to light it up as part of, the modification, and also trying to do renewal. And it clearly doesn't, intersect with the area where this is happening, also as a neighborhood that really wasn't part of that blighted area. So I guess my question is, what statistics do we have on crime in that area that maybe light would impact? Just a question, because URAs are definitely blighted and they have a list of problems that gets them to being blighted. And so to me, light is one of the things that sometimes is used as a tool to try to change that. But here what we have is clearly a neighborhood who sees themselves not as a URA, not as an urban area, but as a mountain town. And that seems to be where the rub is. And I'm wondering if somebody can at least shed some light on the idea of these lights and what kind of safety rules help you design them. And then maybe if we have any information on crime in that area, that would shed some light on maybe why we're trying to put so many lights there. And I understand the problem with that, but I feel like that's kind of how we got here.
Thank you. Councilor Chandler.
I want to give the rest of council a little bit of background on one of the reasons why the lighting is such a very sensitive issue. And I think this is really important for you all to know. And it really segues into what Alan Delwich was talking about the very big fear on this end of town about the urbanization of Becker's Lane. We have the 3-story condominiums that have come up, and since they have been electrified, to make it look like people are living there, and that any of these units have been purchased, the developer has kept the lights on in at least 2 of the units 24/7, and over the holidays has added Christmas lights. So those of us living around that condominium project, the light pollution is just, I mean, it's so awful that there are some of us, and me included, that are really really questioning whether we can have a mountain town quality of life here. And then when you add in the addition of the trees coming down and then additional lighting coming up, there's concern and upset over here. And I just think you need to know that as you think about this project and its long-term and permanent effects on this community, the URA while the Becker's Lane Bridge is part of the URA project, I totally agree with Councillor Wolbrecht that really Manitou Avenue is the blighted area, but when you get into Becker's Lane, this at least used to be, and I hope we can hang on to it, was our little tiny community, and it's changing, and it's really hard for a lot of us to think about maintaining the quality of life and the reason we moved here. And I really think that I'm not convinced of the constraints of the stormwater drain, but I'm not an engineer. But there's some things that we can look at a little deeper and delve into, the trees and the lighting. And I'm just, I'm not convinced that these conversations that I'm satisfied enough to vote for it at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Karen, did you have a comment there you wanted to respond to? You're muted, Karen.
Thank you. The landscape architect for the project, Ann Wynn, actually provided an email to let us know that the trees are expected to grow 12 inches to 18 inches a year. So just to provide that input. And they are, the 3 types range between medium to large types of trees. I'm trying to determine the size. I think it goes from between 40 to 50 feet. Is the mature size.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's helpful. I guess council, we've Mayor Pro Tem had brought a motion to the floor. It has not been seconded. I guess I'd kind of like to get a sense of where we're at on this. I think I guess my read is that Councilors Bremner and Fortune would be ready to vote. I think I'd be ready to vote. Councilors Chandler and Shade, I think they want less lights and more trees along El Paso Boulevard, but otherwise seem to me to be in favor. Councilor Wolf has a number of concerns, as does as Councilor Wolbert just said. I think we do need to think about taking some action tonight. I guess one thought is that, or one perspective that I've become aware of is that, you know, the URA is paying for this. If so, this is kind of a late Christmas present. This is over $2 million that's not coming out of the city's general fund. So I find that sort of an attractive thing. I don't want to postpone this much longer, but if we can't get to a decision tonight, I think we need to there's going to be some wringing of hands. So that said, I guess I see Councilor Wolf has her hand up. Julie, would you have a comment?
Well, just briefly, I'm not sure how there is a number of ways this could be accomplished, but I would be very interested in taking a poll of the people who live in that immediate area. Because I'm sorry, but what I hear and what I see when I go for walks and I run into neighbors and I get emails from friends is not what I'm hearing about these public engagement meetings. So I don't know who the heck attended these public engagement meetings, and I don't know if they even live there. But I want to know what the people, if there's any doubt in your mind, Mayor, I guess this is what I'm suggesting. If there's any doubt in your mind about how the neighborhood really feels, and will they be furious with us if this gets passed tonight, then heck, let's just put it off for 2 weeks and do a thorough survey of people in that immediate area. I don't have to say exactly which address to which, but let's look at El Paso Boulevard, or, you know, and you know, the second block of Becker's, just whatever that is north of the bridge. Because the sense I have is that the neighborhood will be really mad at us if we insist on all these darn streetlights. I mean, Nancy gave a great speech and rah, rah, rah. And I do appreciate the engineering that has gone into this and the hard work and the many hours. And now we're talking about what I would consider tweaking it. But I don't think the sky's going to fall if we put this off until our next meeting and see how people really feel if you're not sure, because I don't buy it that the public engagement is, oh, we can't wait to have 12 lights. That's not reality in my world. So I'd like to see what the reality is.
We've had a number of public meetings. I think the city has, and city staff has made a real stellar effort to involve people and to respond. You know, in a number of cases, Dole and Karen got back one-on-one with people who'd expressed concern. So there gets to be a point when we take this public engagement as far as we can, gosh, people are still not completely happy. I'm afraid that sometimes that's the thing.
Can I just ask you about that, Mayor? Because you're talking about public engagement. I'm talking about just the neighborhood public, not people who live, you know, in Crystal Hills or, you know, up on Fairview near the COG. And I'm not talking about people who maybe are landlords that live in Denver, Colorado Springs. I'm talking about people who are most impacted by this permanent decision. And when I asked for the minutes of those meetings, it was very clear that we don't know for sure how many people were there. We don't know how many of them lived in Manitou, and we sure don't know how many of them were the immediate neighborhood. So, you know, so what that there was 11 people that was on something a year ago? I don't know who the heck they are, and I don't know if they live there or if they still live there. I just know that the people who do live there are like, oh, we're so sick of this and we're so angry. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to get their voices, you know, it's just, I just thought if you have any doubt, then I would like to see this postponed so there could be more community input. But otherwise, you know, I guess we'll just let the chips fall where they do.
And I understand your point, trying to read the audience, you know, trying to understand what the voters really want. And sometimes they don't say anything until you're at the 11th hour. And by then, you know, it's late. So I can appreciate that. I think we all get frustrated by that from time to time. Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to bring your motion back?
Well, I think my motion is on the table. It's to approve the contract and to limit the tree removal of no more than 12 trees. And I'm just waiting on a second.
And Mayor, Councilor Wolbert has her hand up again.
Councilor Wolbert, I take that as a second.
Yes.
That is a second. So we have a motion, a second. that would be to accept the plans as they are, and stipulating that no more than 12 trees be taken out. Did I say that correctly? Okay, thank you. Okay, any further discussion, council? If not, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. So I see 4 votes in favor. Okay, all opposed, say nay, and raise your hand, please. I say 3 against. So motion passes 4-3. Right, thank you. Our next item is business before.
Eric, can we take a break?
Yeah, that'd be fine. That was kind of what I was going to ask. Okay, so let's take a 10-minute break. Well, it's almost 8:15. Let's say 8:25. Okay, see you at 8:25. Thank you. Okay. All right, looks like we got everybody back. Let's go ahead and get started then. The next agenda item is to receive or act on council correspondence. Does anyone have anything? It's been quiet. Mayor Pro Tem? Oh, you're muted, Nancy.
Whoops. Yeah, actually, there's been a lot of meetings over the past couple of weeks. As much as I've tried to ignore city business, I couldn't escape it. So Para met last night, and one of the concerns they had was that there seemed to be a lot of tables on sidewalks, and I don't know if that's a code thing, but that seems to be obstructing some traffic on downtown. And the Creative District, Becca came and presented and asked their opinion and input on incorporating some tables in pocket parks, specifically Shoshone, Cheyenne Springs, and Town Clock Park, to increase some seating downtown. Para was very amenable to it, with the exception of Town Clock. They were concerned about the impact on the grass there. Secondly, Becca also brought up that she's received a grant for over $48,000 to expand seating in the street and additional bike parking, and is still waiting on federal, let's see, she needs a federal highway waiver in order to proceed, but she's expecting that soon. So that's very exciting. I would ask, I don't know if anyone else, I would assume some of the rest of you have been getting texts, a lot of texts from some individual who I have no idea who it is, but it seems like they might have some challenges. They indicate that they're, I think, living in a hotel, and the texts are very, very confusing. And I just wondered if there's anything that needs to be done about that, if there's any, if anything we need to do, if there's any risk and so on, knowing that. Am I the only one getting those texts?
No, I've also gotten them. I don't think I've gotten anything from that individual for a week or so, but they are disturbing and rather incoherent. Yeah.
I blocked him.
I haven't figured out how to block them on my phone, but I equally worry about them. In fact, I almost called Councilor Chandler over the weekend to ask her opinion, because I was just concerned about the mental status of whoever it was sending these texts. Anyway, more information on that. The match continues to meet. They had an additional session this evening on Tier 2 grant applications, an education session for anyone who wanted to submit a Tier 2 grant. And then they ended up delaying the Tier 1 applications. They were due this week, and now they've put that off until January 18th. So that gives a little bit more time for the Tier 1 applicants to submit. Let's see. The URA met, and good news is the Holiday Inn should be completed by this fall. Good news, bad news, depending on how you feel about the Holiday Inn. And the HAB met, and they're continuing to make great progress on habitability and safety standards for, particularly for rental properties within the city. So they're just doing an outstanding job on that and working closely with planning as well on that. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wilbrook?
Thanks. I just have three things. One is I have gotten correspondence, particularly about the Mate Factors improvements, which seem to be attached to the building. They're more than just street tables using the public space under the COVID Emergency Act. I understood from a C-Click Fix that they were going to be asked to do permits for that, but we just seem to be going in this direction that I don't know how we get out of it. And if there's this kind of encroachment or things that are happening in our business district, there's just a lot of questions about that. So we don't have to talk about it tonight, but I've gotten quite a few questions about what they've done, in addition to how safe those spaces really are, since they seem to have moved the indoors outdoors by putting those doors on and things. I don't know the answers to any of that. I just got a lot of questions about it. If maybe Mr. Cheney could talk to us and remind us where people, I've got a lot of questions about where to go to get an online parking permit if you're in an RPP. Is that on the website?
The RPPs, we generally ask them to still go into the office there at the parking department.
Oh, okay. Well, that would explain why I didn't on the website. So I will let people know they still need to go into the office to get their permits, correct?
Yes, we are working at changing that, but currently that's the best way to get it.
Okay, sorry. For some reason, I thought I had gotten an email that said you could get them online, and then I couldn't find it. So I thought I just lost it. But that clears that up for me, and I will pass that on. And then my last one would probably be more for Denise. There was an unemployment delay caused by the new bill. In addition to the unemployment system is going to a new system. And so everybody got a notice that there were some that were canceled. This may not be resolved until February. And I have had quite a few neighbors in my ward express concern to me, and maybe dismay is a better word. If you're having conversations with Representative Snyder, this might be something to ask him, because I don't know who else would, other than legislatures, would have the power to speed this up. I understand the Gazette did an article, it's about a delay in the Labor Department, but it happened in 2008 as well. But I mean, this in the middle of a pandemic and redoing your system, and it's just really hit a lot of people hard. I woke up Sunday morning to a lot of correspondence from people who could realize that they weren't going to be getting any kind of payment until February or later. So if you happen to have a meeting with him, can you please pass that on as a big concern? Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Counselor Wolf, please. You're muted.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
one thing, I just wanted to confirm, has the lien been put on the Pawnee property?
So we recorded the notice of amount due. And under the code, the lien goes into effect 30 days after that. So it's already been recorded, and then the final formal lien will come after that.
Oh, God, that's great news. Thank you. Also, I just wondered, I thought by now, and maybe I had calendared this incorrectly, but forever ago, we had some meeting about some gentlemen who came and presented on Serpentine Drive eminent domain process. And I thought near the end of the year, we were going to find out that you, Jeff, had been consulted and the proper notices had been sent out to initiate the eminent domain.
Can I just say this is executive session and cannot be discussed now? That is executive session and should not be discussed at this point.
Oh.
We could put the matter on for executive session at your next meeting. I give you a full update.
Okay. And then I also got some mention about people who have said they want the signs at the parking lots removed because they're wrong. They're wrong. They're always, they say it's full and you look and it's like, it's not full. Or it says there are 24 open spaces and you're like, dang, if there are maybe 4. So, I've just noticed that too walking around. So I think the signs should be removed until Roy can figure out how to, I guess he doesn't have all the parts or some vague story we were told. But I'd be supportive of that too. Because, you know, who wants to drive by and it says full and you believe it and it's not full. So I wondered if someone could address that, or if you don't want to, then I would ask that it be put on the agenda, I guess.
Ms. Wolf, can I ask you if that's a recent, like in the last few days, a statement, or is that from before?
Oh,
Okay.
I've seen the errors for weeks, but it was the last few days that I got a call that said, will you bring this up? I'm sick of the, so, but no.
Okay, well, we'll turn them off. And so my understanding, they were working in the last few days. We're still don't have everything because of COVID. It's just taken a while. And we have one problem at Hiawatha, but my understanding, they were working, but we could easily turn those off in the meantime. So I'll work on that tomorrow.
Roy, we just got an update. They are working as of today. Remember, even though if they're not full, they say that they're full because there's that certain leadway that you have. So
There's like a 10 space thing.
A 10 space.
But,
and so we could change that.
Then they're not helping.
well, that's the standard in parking.
It says full when it's not full.
Correct. When it's at like a 10 car space availability, that it says full normally, so that you don't get more cars going in there and then getting upset that they're suddenly full, because there could be cars already in there. So it's kind of a standard to do that. Now we could go to 0 on that. We can change that, but that's kind of the standard. So we left it there at this point. So there's still a little bit of trial and error, but we'll tweak that. But again, at this point, putting it to and turning them off to make sure they're right is totally okay. And we'll confirm that. We'll just make sure everything's working.
Well, and to that point though, Roy, if I could ask you, I thought you had explained some time ago that, you know, we've been working on this for about 12 months now, not we, you, and that you couldn't possibly make it work the way it was intended, where people coming into town are advised about which lot they might want to be aiming for, because you're waiting for certain equipment, and then that would eventually be placed on the very east end of town. Do I have that right?
Well, and you're close. Yeah, we have 5 of the major signs that are still in production. We actually got those today and approved them. And so once they come in, those will be the main signs on the Manitou Avenue area and Ruxton area that will show the availability of those parking spaces. Those are not up yet, and those are actually the most critical ones. So what we have are the smaller lot signs that we're utilizing and trying to use that when I drive into town, for example, in the morning, I try to go through and look at the signs and look at the occupancy and see how accurate they are. So we're trying to get some visual data as well. So I know it's been a little frustrating for people probably because it has been at times showing wrong numbers. But we can also do some of that without them turned on. So it's something that we could change there until we get that more accurate. But once we get the larger signs, and as they come into town, they will see a sign that tells them that Hiawatha has so many spots, and then it'll tell them the next lot and how many spots are available. So as they drive through, they'll be able to see what lots have availability. So that is what we're still waiting for, and we don't have that yet. And that's pretty critical part of the system.
Well, it sounds like when the sign says it's full, but it's not full, you can fix that. But the reason you didn't fix it because you're afraid it'll cause too much traffic jam inside the parking lot if we tell the truth.
Yeah, we're relying on some experts in the parking field, and so they part of the systems and all these things is that they try to put a buffer in there. And the buffer, because if, let's say you wait and let's say there's 100 spots and it says 99 full exactly, and then 2 other cars are ahead of you didn't see, and then you go in there and you miss it. So at the 5 or 10 range, it starts telling you it's full. So maybe you go to the next lot and we don't have 5 cars already in there circling, looking for things. So we're trying to reduce traffic jam. That's the theory. Now, maybe it's not a good plan for Manitou, and I don't know that yet. So we're still working on it. And I apologize for any, miscommunications to the public or anybody else. It is a process, but we don't have to have them on all the time. And maybe we do certain test times and then we shut them off again. So let me look into that. I mean, I appreciate the feedback because I can't be there all the time looking at these signs, and for people to say they're having some problems really helps a lot. So I'll keep working on that. Yeah.
Just my personal opinion, I haven't taken a poll or anything, but to me in Little Manitou, you know, I drive by, I walk by like, and it says full and it's not full. And then cars are not going in because they think it's full. And I'm walking by and I'm looking and I'm like, well, sure ain't full. I see at least 4 open spots and that's just viewing from the sidewalk. Now, maybe all that's fixed in the last 2 or 3 days, but I think it's a good idea for the public to be told the lot is full when it's not full. I don't care what the expert thinks. I think that's ridiculous. But okay.
I get it. Yeah. So let me look into it a little bit more and see what's best for Manitou. You know, again, it's good feedback. I appreciate that. And I'll continue to tweak it and look at it and see what ends up being the best practice. So thank you for that input. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Else? I guess I would like to follow up on the topic we were just talking about. Mr. Cheney, I think part of the idea of the buffers to be, it makes more sense when you think about, it makes a little more, it's a little easier to grasp when you think about, I believe, the Park Mobile app, because one of the ideas, the long-term vision, I think, for parking in Manitou is that people would be able to use a telephone app. And for instance, you're nowhere, let's say nowhere near a parking lot, and you look on your app to see which parking lots have availability. Well, if you're in downtown, let's say you're down by the Hiawatha Gardens, and maybe there's only 5 spots left up at the Iron Springs Chateau, that may be shown as being full because there's probably 5 cars ahead of you that are going to go up and get those 5 spots. And I think maybe that's part of the overall view as to how that buffer is applied. So it's at some point, maybe this spring, Mr. Cheney will take a little time during a work session and you could explain the nuances to us and how the tuning works on that. So
yeah, the plan is to do a TMMP review and plan in March to get ready for the COG opening in the summer.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and include, you know, I'll do a little more research on that and make sure that we're doing what is the best thing. But that's accurate too, Mayor. You know, the idea of people looking ahead of things. And then if you have, you know, you could have people in the lot looking for parking spots. So that's why there's that buffer app, or even if you're driving up Manitou Avenue. So that's why they use it. But maybe again at Manitou, we don't need it, or maybe it only needs to be, you know, 1 or 2 cars that are where it says full, that leaves 2 spots available. Again, the accuracy of the system is, I believe, about 98 point something %. And so, but it gives us pretty good at data, even if it's not 100%. And we're already getting some of that data because we did a lot of visuals as well over the last, you know, few weeks, and we're comparing them to the Parking Logics, and we are really close to that. So,
Mayor.
see, Judy has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned that this conversation is a little bit more in depth since it's
Okay.
Not
All right.
addressed.
Okay,
Certainly we
thank you. Good point. We'll move on.
on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other counselors have things for council correspondence? Apparently not. We'll go to the city administrator's report. Mr. Cheney.
yeah, just 3 things. The pedestrian flags are in. You know, we have a set in front of City Hall. They worked really well. We want to use those down Manitou Avenue to help with pedestrian safety to cross. They seem to be pretty effective. So we'll be getting those put in by the end of the week. Also, the push button PED light is in, and that's going to be put at Patsy's Candy as a test run for a crosswalk. That's a high use area, and there's been some close calls there. So we're going to see how that works. And then based on the website information today, Ms. Wolf and anybody else who has any constructive criticism on the website, you know, Alex and I review that occasionally. We haven't done it for a little while, but we're always looking for input on that to improve it and make it better. You know, everyone has their own preference on websites and how they're easy to navigate, but there's a lot of good, important information that you can provide us. So anytime you can email Denise and she'll forward it to us, and we'll look at ways to improve it and simplify things, because there's a lot of good ideas out there and we just don't know them all, and we need that feedback. So please let us know anytime. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Denise?
Just a couple of things. Karen Share today did their mobile food truck, And now that they have an electronic data system, it was hard to know the exact number, but somewhere in the mid-20s families came by and picked up food, which was great. So we were able to offer that. Kevin did say that Parking Logic is now working. So Councilor Wolf, that is working. Sometimes the Hiawatha does not work exactly because of the snow plows. And so then they have to work on that. So Roy and Kevin will keep working on that as we move forward. And then other than that, I've been working on the 5-star program and trying to get that moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Denise. Okay. Our next item of business is an executive session. And actually, I guess we'd say there are 2 sessions or 2 portions to the session. So we'll need a motion for that to go into it. Let me read the subject matter of the executive sessions first while we're still in a public meeting. 1, an executive session to hold a conference with the city attorney for legal advice pursuant to section 5.1C of the Manatee Springs City Charter concerning the legal issues and procedures involved with the personnel executive session that follows this executive session. In other words, session 2. 2, an executive session for a personnel matter regarding an employee or an applicant for employment, unless the employee or applicant requests an open meeting pursuant to section 5.1A of the Manatee Springs City Charter. This executive session will be to address the performance of the city administrator. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Chandler. All in favor, say aye. Show your hand. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. All right, we'll go into executive session. The city clerk has set up a separate link, separate Zoom session for that, so we can log out. Let's, Judy, you need to make transfer. So if we came back in about 5 minutes, would that be enough turnaround time?
Yeah, I only need a couple minutes here.
John,
Okay,
could you direct who's going to be in who's going to be in executive session?
Of course, yes, City Council. Mr. Parker, I'll look to direction from you on that.
Yeah, the first executive session will be for legal advice. That'll be all of City Council and me. And then the second executive session, which we'll make clear on the tape, will be to include Ms. Howell.
Very good, thank you. Good point. Okay, so I've got 8:49. Let's plan on coming back at 8:55 then. 6 minutes. Okay, thank you. See you in 6 minutes.